How did you even become aware of the fact that you were a narcissist?
So for me, on my own personal journey, I've always kind of known that something was going on with me from the time I was very, very young, like between 7 and 9 years old. I've always kind of known that I just, I have a twin brother to base my behaviors off of. He's not a diagnosed narcissist. He's not a narcissist. I know people always ask me when I tell them I have a twin, but always had him to kind of mirror. And I just like, he acts differently than I do. He feels differently than I do. And all the people around me, my friends and family members, like kids my age, whatever, would be acting differently, behaving differently. It's like, something's going on with me. I'm like, I don't feel like I don't feel like I think like them. My emotions don't connect to people like that. I knew I was different, but that's what society teaches you. Everybody's different in their own special way, So I was just like, maybe I'm just special. So as life went on, I've always kind of known that I was different from a very, very young age. And I do believe that a lot of narcissists out there know that something's going on. They just don't know what it is. They can't put a finger on it. Just like I don't think differently. They have these they describe them as out of body experiences, or I didn't know how that was affecting you. There's self awareness for. I think there's a certain level of self awareness, but they don't know what's going on. They know that they're doing wrong. I would say that they know, most of them know the difference between right and wrong. That's why they try to hide it. That's why they try to mask it and whatnot, but they don't know why they're doing the things that they're doing. So I do believe, like, because I've been knowing since I was like say, super young, and I talk about this in therapy. I've been knowing I was different for a long, long time. It's just when I heard the word narcissist back in 2017, that's when I had a name for it. That's when I had a title for my behaviors. That's when I was like, damn, So that's why I've been feeling different since I was 7 or 8 years old, because of this right here. So that's why when I heard the word narcissist, it changed my life, because I didn't view it in a negative light. I was like, oh, this is an explanation. This is an answer to the questions I've been asking myself for 20, no, what was I, 20, I was 31. So no, this is a question I've been asking myself for 25 years. Like, why did I feel this way? Oh, this is why I have a personality disorder. So I feel like I've always kind of been self-aware of it. And every other narcissist that I talk to online, any of the self-aware ones, they've known that something is going on with them. They know there's something that they don't behave the same way that everybody behaves. They try to mirror it, they try to fit in, but it's always something internally behind the scenes. Like, if your mind is spinning clockwise, mine is spinning counterclockwise. We're both clocks, but we are just wired differently. I'm spinning in a totally different direction. So I've always been kind of self-aware, but it's just not like it's just not self-aware to be able to change my behaviors until I had a title, until I actually got a diagnosis and whatnot, and I actually knew what to work on, and I actually accepted it as well, because acceptance is big. Self acceptance is huge on anybody's mental health journey. Like, accepting is like, oh, okay, so I have this. What can I do about it? Do I just like, am I going to be defeated? Is this going to take over my life, or am I going to do something about it in a positive way? And I chose positive, even though I get a lot of negativity as well. But like, I just chose a positive route to try to get something positive out of it, and help people as well.
So how would you show up in relationships as a narcissist?
I felt like in the beginning, of most of my relationships, every single relationship started off the same way. I would be extremely infatuated with the person. I felt like I had found my person, like, realistically, because I always felt incomplete. Like, growing up, I always felt like I was missing something. I was like, maybe it's the love, maybe it's the love of my life. So when I'm, 18, 19, 20 years old, meeting people and whatnot, I'm like, I need to get this person to like me back. So I'm love bombing the person. I'm like, I'm studying you, of course, and I figured out your likes and dislikes, and I'm going to do all the likes. The dislikes, I might actually do a lot of the dislikes initially. That might be my actual personality. But if I find out you don't like that stuff, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to put that to the side. I'm going to put it in my book bag till later on. It's still with me. It's still part of me. But like, I'm going to give you everything you want and need. I'm going to show up. I'm going to try to make you super happy. Eventually, the real personality comes out. The real version of me comes out once you get them locked in. It's like, once you feel like that person is attached, you feel like you can kind of, if you're speeding down with me and you are in this relationship car, and we're speeding down the highway, moving super fast. Once I feel like I got you locked in, like we exchanging I love yous, we care about each other, we are married or whatever, there's a kid on the way, we bought a house, whatever it is, whatever that I feel like gets us locked in, then I feel like I can be me. I can take my foot off the gas now. and then the real personality starts coming out. And then once my real personality starts coming out, the other person realizes they don't like me as much because, like, oh, this is the real you. So I start treating them differently. I'm disconnected as well because I don't like them as much because they're treating me differently now. So I disconnect from them, and the relationship will always go sour. Like every single relationship I had would end the same way. I would wake up one day and look at the person. I'm like, what the hell? What am I doing with you? Like, is this what my life has become? Do I want what? You? This is it for me? And that's how my mind would work. And I wouldn't start hating the person, but I would just like everything about the person would annoy me. Like when they talk, when they breathe, I was like, it was like, almost like every single thing about that person and their personality would annoy me. And of course, I'm disconnected from them. They would disconnect from me, and they would end up breaking over me. It's crazy that like I've never broken up with anybody in my life, so it's just I would always start just disconnected from them, and they would break up with me. And most people refer to that as the reverse discard. Well, I don't want to be with you anymore, but I have a lot of cowardice, and I don't want to deal with the confrontation. So I just like start disconnecting from you to the point where you just like, okay, I've had enough, and then you walk away. So that just kind of absolved me of that of having to break up with that person. And all of them would end the same way, like all of them. It's crazy how they kept happening over and over again. And I didn't realize why until I found out the word narcissist. Like, that's it. Self discovery.
One of the things that's always been interesting to me is I never just knew how somebody's personality could just change like overnight to where they go from acting like you are the best thing ever to happen to them. Then the minute like things get more serious, which I guess in a typical relationship, the intimacy and the love should grow stronger, right? As you start to like climb up the relationship ladder. I've just never seen it where all of a sudden somebody's personality completely shifts like into a version that you don't recognize at times. Like walk me through. I mean, I know you mentioned that it comes from a place of like insecurity where you're trying to like essentially make yourself whole. You said that it's not a vengeful thing where you're looking to destroy somebody's life, but what are you trying to get out of that person that you can't give yourself?
I feel like most narcissists, right, have trouble with self validation. So they need other people for that. Like I can't validate myself. I can't even validate my own self worth. So they use other people to validate themselves. You know, they seek out certain people that make them look better in life in certain aspects of their thing right there. But what you just said about the personality changing overnight, that's them becoming their self. You know, they changed for you to meet you in the beginning. They changed to become who you needed to be. Like whoever they felt like they needed to be to get you, that's who they became. So it's just like if I had to be this cute, kind, funny person to be with you, or I'm going to pretend to be that to get you. And then, like I said, once I feel like I got you, or once I feel like I during the kind of people refer to it as the love bombing phase when they're love bombing you, they're giving you everything you want and need. They see you as a perfect person as well. They see you as the perfect partner for them. Like I see you as the perfect partner for me. So you're perfect in my eyes. But it's something that you do, like nothing bad that you do to them. Like once they see you are a human being and not a perfect person, like everybody comes with flaws. Once you start setting boundaries, or you use the word no, or you give them some constructive criticism, or you argue with them, they start to see you differently. So they start taking the love away. So what initially might have started off as not trying to hurt you can flip to them trying to hurt you. So it doesn't start off that way. It doesn't start off with an insidious plan to hurt you from the beginning for most of them. But it can turn into that once they start to see you different because they look at you as a liar. Even though they put you on this pedestal, they looked at you as a perfect human being. Once you start to reveal your flaws, it's like, oh, damn. So Doug's been lying to me this whole time about who he really is. I thought he was perfect for me. So even though they were lying about who they were, they look at you as a liar and they start treating you as such. So they start treating you negatively. They start trying to take you down. They start trying to, because they put you on this pedestal, they feel like, oh, it's my pedestal. I can knock him off of it. Gotcha. And they start rocking you off the pedestal, and they start taking you down and start attacking. If they know what your insecurities are, they start attacking your insecurities. They start making you feel less than. They start, what a lot of people refer to as, the devaluation stage. They start to devalue you and take the love away. They become somebody totally different than what you originally envisioned them as. Because to them, you became somebody different. Even though you didn't change anything, you are you. Like they just start to see you differently because you're like, hey, hey, do you want to do this? And you say no, no, and they take that as rejection. They take that as the ultimate criticism, and they start they like, okay, I got something for you. You gonna say no to me? And then they start attacking you in certain ways. Maybe not physically, but they start attacking you emotionally. They start attacking your emotions and your insecurities and things like that. They start disconnecting from you. So instead of climbing the ladder, you're still climbing the ladder. They're knocking pegs off of it. They're like so you can't come back down. So you're stuck up there. They're still at the ground floor. So that's the type of stuff that can start to happen as well.
You said like it's not necessarily in a way where the narcissist is trying to blatantly hurt the person that they're dating, but it does also seem like they're calculated in their behavior, right? Some manipulation early on where they're trying to mirror the behavior of the person to get them to like them. And then they find out what makes them tick, what irritates them, and they're kind of like using all of that to navigate how they're going to behave and treat the person. Do narcissists like have any kind of remorse? Because that's another thing you hear is that they don't show empathy, they have no compassion. Do they feel any kind of remorse when they're doing something to purposely hurt somebody in a relationship?
I do feel like there's a lot of narcissists that have the ability to feel remorse. But there really is, and the way I describe it is, when I start talking about people, it's just like that's the devil. They start going spiritual with it. That's the devilly. That's the demon inside of you. I'm like, no, Um, but when I would do something bad, right, and I would feel guilty, I would feel more remorseful for what I've done. There's a part of my mind, and my therapist would say that's the kind of the id, the other part of your ego, or whatever, that would take over. Like the narcissistic part would take over and doesn't want you to feel that. So it would shut it off. And it would automatically kind of start doing these mental gymnastics to find a way to justify your behaviors to yourself. So you like, I know I'm treating you badly, but you did something to me. I'm repaying the favor. So they always they find a way to blame you. So they might feel guilty or remorseful in a moment or two, for a little while, and they're like, oh, I can't believe I did that. But then something in their mind just like, you only did what was right. They did this, they did that. You're right. This is all the internal conversation. You're right. They did do that to me. Like if they wouldn't have caught me cheating, then they would have their feelings wouldn't have been hurt. Just like if they would have caught me texting this other person, their feelings wouldn't have been hurt. So it's not really my fault. Like they shouldn't have dug too deep. They shouldn't have did this. They shouldn't have done that. So this is their fault. So they get rid of the remorse. They get rid of it. It's kind of, my therapist referred to it as the spectrum of guilt and remorse. It's on a spectrum. They're like sliding up it. But then the narcissism pushes us back down. Like, nope, that's their fault. So, yeah, like I said, I felt bad for, and the crazy thing about it is, I, even now, even before I started going to therapy, I would just have random bouts of feeling bad for stuff I had done to people 10 years ago. I was like, oh, I can't believe that happened. I was like, it just randomly. I'd be sitting in the office or something, or I used to work in a warehouse. I'd be in the warehouse. I'm like, I cannot believe I did that. But then my mind would still do the same mental gymnastics, even though I hadn't talked to the person in 10 years. You know, even though I haven't seen the person, something will remind me of the person. Like, I was working a food grocery store distribution center, so like a food brand would remind me of the person. I'm like, oh, they like these, they like these Maruchan noodles, like, and they'll make me think about that person. I was just like, I can't believe I did that. Then my mind would blame them, and I was just, oh, okay, it's their fault, and I would just keep going. So they do. You can have bouts of it. It can pop up here and there. It can just be sporadic, but it doesn't stick. And I just feel like that's the problem right there. The issue is it doesn't stick. They don't want to sit in it because the sitting in the guilt, the sitting in the shame, the sitting in the remorse, that becomes the problem because you just this self like the narcissistic part of you. It is self-defeating. Like I said earlier, when they need other people for validation. If I don't have somebody else to validate me, that voice in my head is negative, just beating you down. It's just you're tearing yourself down. So you need somebody else to validate you. You need a relationship to validate you. You need to post a scantily clad picture to validate you. You need something like that. You need to post how successful or how happy you are, and people to root for you and cheer you on. You need that type of validation because if you sit by yourself in a room, you go crazy. And I tell people, the scariest experience I probably ever had. It's gonna sound funny. You ever hear of those sensory deprivation tanks? Um,
Yeah,
where
yeah,
you
I've been
got
in one. You gotta
you
go
been
in
in
the
one?
water?
Okay.
The
Yeah, yeah,
water?
you
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. You close the pod up, it's completely dark, you
yeah,
can't see, you can't hear it. Man, it was
yeah.
it was so scary to me because I went through with it and I stayed in there for the whole time. But I remember when I first like closed the pod up and it wasn't, you can't hear, you can't see, it's like completely dark and you're in there floating. And I feel like I feel like it was 1,000 voices in there with me, just talking negative to me. So I had to turn the light on. I was kicking and screaming. I was like, oh, what the hell? So I had to, because I'm personally trying to fight this battle within myself. I had kind of had to wean myself into it. I would turn the light off, breathe for a few minutes, turn it back on. Turn it off, breathe for a few minutes, turn it back on. Like I said, I would keep doing that to build it up right there, because I need the type of stuff. I'm trying to face it, where most narcissists don't want to face that. They'll go, like I said, I ain't doing that, because the voices do attack you. The bad stuff you done or any type of insecurity that you feel about yourself, you'll hear it. You'll hear it when you're alone. So that's why you get a lot of narcissistic people who don't want to be by themselves and they're seeking constant validation, because if you don't, you're not good enough. Nobody likes you. You're too fat. You're too this. You're too that. Every single insecurity is just like the voices. It's kind of like turning the volume up, and it can drive you crazy. It really can.
So you mentioned that you went to therapy or in therapy to help with your narcissistic personality disorder. Like, what are some of the things that you've had to change and work on personally, and how has your marriage changed pre and post therapy?
One of the main things I feel like I've worked on in therapy is and this is like one of the very first exercises we did. It's like understanding what is in my control and what is not. Because I feel like that's what so many, when a lot of narcissists are growing up, getting raised or whatever, we don't have control over our circumstances. Like we have no control over how we were raised, what's going on in our lives. So when we do grow up, the one thing that we try to do is control too much. So my therapist kind of sniffed it out in the very first few sessions, and she had me do this exercise, like a control circle exercise. It's like a small circle and then a big circle on a piece of paper. She's like, on the in the small circle, write down the things that you have control over, the actual things you have control over in your life. And I was like, okay, and it was, of course, it was too much. It was way too much. She's like, okay, you can stop now. It's like, but you see, because you don't have control over that. There's so many things in that little circle you don't have control over. You can't control your little brother and where he wants to go to school at. You can't control, like, it was so many stupid things I had in that circle. It just kind of woke me. I'm like, damn, you really cannot control so many things in your life. Like, only thing you can control is, you know, how you behave and pretty much how you react and how you show up and stuff like that. So I was just like, I have to work on me and how I communicate with people, how I listen to people and receive information, and understanding what I am in control of and what I'm not in control of, and how I learn how to respond as opposed to reacting. And that right there has been, it's been huge on my marriage becoming better. Cause like my wife, she's left a couple times, but the most recent time she left was back in 2020. And like right before COVID started, like it's pretty much like, we got the stay at home order and, she did not stay at home. She left and she you know, yeah, she did not stay at home. And I remember that. And I was just like, I came home, I was like, and I knew it was my fault. And it's just this one situation like, I knew it was me. And I didn't ask what I did wrong because I knew I did wrong. I wasn't listening. I wasn't communicating. It was just like we became like roommates. They were co-parent. They're parenting our kids in the same house. It was stupid. It was on me. She was trying to communicate. I was like, I want to hear it. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. You know. And it got to the point where she just decided to leave, and I'm glad she did, because if she didn't, nothing would have changed. But I went back to therapy because I was already in therapy at that point for 2.5 years, but I had missed like 4 sessions, and things kind of started to revert back to the old ways, and that's why she left. So when she did leave, I went back to therapy, and I remember my first therapy appointment back, and this was virtual now because of COVID. And she's like, anything new going on in your life? I was like, well, my wife left, and my therapist immediately said, "What you do?" What happened? And she's like, "What did you do?" I was like, and I just told her, and I understood that, like, I have to be a better listener because I can communicate. I can talk my head off, but listening is a skill that a lot of people, have to work on, especially myself. So I started to listen to her more. So I do listen to her. She has good advice. She has good ideas. She's smart. She's funny. And she is she has a lot of empathy. She's a very caring person. She cares a lot. She's, type of person that cries at the end of hoarders because they cleaned the house up. Just like, she's like, "Oh, they cleaned the house up and their family's coming over. They got the grandkids." Oh, like, like, "That's cool," but she's over there boohoo crying. I'm like, "How?" So it helps me to learn from her and to listen and to just vibe from her. So our communication has gotten way better because of therapy. Because I used to not want to listen to her because I feel like, what I told you earlier, if you're not praising them, you're criticizing them. So everything that she would say that I could do better, I took it as me not being enough for her, or her trying to drag me down. So now I'll listen to her and just like, you know what? That's right. I said, you're right. I can work on that. So that's part of the reason why I'm here now, because I learned to listen more and learn to receive information better. Because, like I said, everything I get online is not a positive thing. I get some negativity, but I was like, is this person really attacking me, or are they trying to, is this Tony Robbins said it's either a cry for help, or what is that? He's like, it's something, but he's like, people communicate, it's either a cry for help or something about being in need. I like, this is a cry for help, or you really something going on with you. So people, you know, I can't remember. I wish I could remember exactly what he said, but I was like, okay, this person, what is going on in your life to make you want to attack a complete stranger online that's not talking about you directly? So I feel like I've learned how to receive information in a healthier way as well, and that's like helped me communicate not only with my wife, with my kids, and just, people online as well.
So one of the things you'll often hear as well about narcissists is that they don't have the ability to like truly love you. Like they don't have the ability to actually love and connect like somebody who doesn't have that type of personality disorder. Like, what is your thought? What are your thoughts on that? And can you actually like love your kids, like love your wife? How does that all present in your life?
So for me, I do think that. I mean, so are there some like narcissists that are further along the spectrum, like sociopath, psychopathic people that maybe don't have the capability of loving somebody? Yeah, that's absolutely true. But I do think that most narcissistic people can love you. It just might not be up to your level of what you need. They love to the level of what they know. And typically they display that love through physical stuff. They give you money, they buy you stuff, and they feel like their presence is enough to show you that they love you. And most love from narcissists comes with strings attached. It's a lot of times it's conditional. It's just like, hey, you criticize me, I'm going to take the love away. You do this to me, if you say this to me, if you don't do this, I'm going to take the love away. So a lot of times it's conditional love. I do feel like they have the ability to love on an emotional level, but it really is uncomfortable. It's just like, because really truly loving somebody deeply requires a level of vulnerability that most narcissists or don't want to go down to, because they view vulnerability as weakness. Because a lot of times the trauma that created a narcissist is based around them being vulnerable in their youth. I was vulnerable to my dad and he hit me, so I can't be vulnerable anymore. I try to be vulnerable to and open up to my mom, and she called me a punk, so I can't talk to her anymore by my emotions. I shut them off. I can't be vulnerable anymore. So it's just like, when you grow up, you don't want to express those emotions in a healthy way anymore because you got chastised as a kid and you get shut down. So for me, yeah, I do. I feel like, being honest, like, I feel like I struggled to love my kids sometimes, and I told my therapist that I was just like, I feel like, it sucks when I say I struggle to love my kids sometimes. And I was just like, I was in therapy crying, actually, and she's like, "You crying and you talk about your kids? Like, that's the fact that shows that you love them." She's like, "You just have to be more vulnerable. You have to be, you expect vulnerability from your kids. You want them to feel safe around you, but you have to be safe around, feel safe around them. Like, you have to feel safe around your wife to open up." And I feel like most narcissists don't trust people to be safe, to feel safe enough around them to open up, to let love in, or to, express love in a healthy way. So it's just like, they typically are just very, very shut down people emotionally, except for rage. They can get angry. Angry. They can get some anger on you. They say anger and rage are secondary emotions. They typically are covering something else up, or they are in place of something. So just for me, just being able to sit there and smile at my kids, and just like, yeah, I do love my kids. So it feels good on that aspect of things. But has been a journey to get there, and to express that and talk to my therapist. And I talk about it online sometimes too. I'm just like, look, I have struggled to feel like to express love to my kids, and here's why. And this is me talking about it has opened it up for me to experience it more. You know, people just I say that online. Oh, you a devil, you the demon. You can't care about your kids. What kind of evil bastard? I'm like, yeah. It's like I'm telling y'all the struggles, cause so it could, it opens me up. This is me being vulnerable in real life too, so I can be vulnerable to them. Just like, look, I told people I struggle to love my kids sometimes. I express love to them, and they demonize me for it. But that's not going to change the fact that I still love my kids, and I'm fighting every day to, protect them and guard them emotionally from the stuff that I might have said, the stuff that I might have been doing. So that's been a struggle right there. But I do believe baseline narcissists can love you. They're just, they might not give you the love to what you deserve. So I'm just like, that's gotta if they're not going to work on themselves, you kind of got to take what they give you right now. And like, are you okay with what you're receiving right now? And most people like, no,
And a lot of people listening to this have either been in a relationship with a narcissist and they don't want to repeat that pattern, or they're maybe hearing what you say and how you've shown up in relationships and how narcissists in general show up. And they're like, oh, there's no way I want to settle for that. What are some of the signs and behaviors of a narcissist early on when they're in a relationship with somebody?
so I feel like speed, of course, is one. I always say that speed is the weapon of a narcissist. Like, if you feel like you're going too fast, slow things down. You know, and all your friends and family members are not hating on you. Like you shouldn't be engaged in 2 weeks. You know, yeah, like they're not hating on you. They're worried about you. Y'all should be living together over the weekend. Y'all just met on Saturday. Y'all live together Monday. How did that happen? And so I feel like speed is absolutely a weapon of the narcissist. But I also feel like one of the biggest red flags that people ignore is their own intuition. Like a lot of times you can feel it. And when I'm talking to people now, when I'm doing my like coaching calls, a lot of people say I knew something was different, and they just like ignored it because they thought it was like this is how it's supposed to be. I knew something was different, and they ignore their own internal feelings. Like, it's like if it feels weird, a lot of times it is weird. Doesn't mean it's wrong, but it is weird. It's like, set boundaries. If you want to avoid narcissists, I say this: find a way to say the word no. Find a way to set a boundary early on, because saying the word no will teach you way more about somebody than saying yes to everything. Because saying yes to everything sets you up. You love me after 2 weeks? Yes. You want to live together? Yes. You want to have a baby? Yes. 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 You keep saying yes, that works for them. But if you say the word no, their true personality will come out, because now that pedestal that they put you on very early on will start to rock. So watch how people react when you say no and you set a boundary, or you say something that they don't like. Take a jab at them. How are they when you make a joke at their expense? How do they behave when you make it? Are they yelling at you on a second date because you joked about them? You know, they can't handle criticism. So find a way to give them some constructive criticism, or make a joke at their expense to see how they react, because they can't handle it. It just they might try to mask it. They might try to smile through clenched teeth. That was a funny joke. You can tell a lot of times, because like when I just tell you this, and this is like even when I first met my wife was like a double date, and she had like two of her friends there that were dating, and me and my wife, we like, it's like our first or second time meeting. Like, yeah, I think it was the second time we was at a restaurant, and her friend said something to me, and I just snapped at her friend, and I was just like, immediately she made a joke, and I just snapped at her friend. And we talked about that today. She was like, "Yeah, that was a red flag." It was like, should have known. It was like, for that moment right there when she said she made a joke at your expense, when you just snapped and said something just so horrible to her when you first met her. It was just like, I should have known then. It was just like, watch how they react to somebody just joking on them. She didn't say anything mean to me. She was really just joking at me. I was just like, and I feel like she's just trying to embarrass me. I was like, and I just snapped on her. I'm just like, ah. And of course, I made a joke after that to kind of brush it over, but like that's still red flaggy. So just like how you feel, trust your intuition in situations like that, because it can save you a lot of time and energy, and sometimes a lot of money um, throughout your life and whatnot.
So that love bombing stage can be tough for people to kind of get out of, because it does feel good for many reasons. You have a person who might be complimenting you a bunch, that you have a person that might be like giving you a bunch of gifts. You have a person that you think is like your soulmate, 'cause you got so much in common with them. But you're right, like there is something that kind of can feel off where you're like, wait, like why is this person like telling me that I'm like the best thing ever? Or they've never felt this way before when they've known me for like a week. Like that's just it's kind of like a signal, but then sometimes you're like, but it still feels so good. I gotta kind of proceed. And I think a lot of people can get maybe trapped in that because they're like, well, how do I know that this person and I just don't just vibe really well? Like in your experience, like what's the difference between somebody like just vibing really well at the beginning and they're like just getting along versus somebody who's being manipulated and love bombed?
So during the love bombing phase, you can actually have a lot in common with the person. So it's not always going to be some extreme mirroring situation. Y'all can just be alike in a lot of ways. So that can happen too. Like the possibility exists that y'all could definitely have a lot in common. So one of the main questions I typically ask people to ask in these situations is like, is this sustainable? You know, like sustainability is extremely important in these situations. Like this person is like, we just met today. We're flying to Paris next week. We just like, is this how we're going to live out? Is this sustainable right here? We're living together after the first couple, like a month and a half in. Is this sustainable? I don't know this person. I just like, is it sustainable? And I always tell people, it's gonna sound like a weird question, but you can tell a lot about people when you ask this question right here. Like, what would you like if I were to interview your exes? What would they say about you? If I were to interview your exes, what would they say? And a lot of people, not just narcissists, but like a lot of people, just like some you can tell. I feel like you can tell a lot when you ask people that question because sometimes people are just like, they can. This is the experience that they can tell you their first lies because they paint their exes, all their exes, as insane or crazy or whatever. You can kind of see how things are gonna go right there. All my exes are crazy. Did they begin the relationship that way? Did it end that way? Did you make them crazy? It's just a question right there because I do feel like the greatest predictor of future behaviors is past behavior, past relationships. Like if I were to interview your last 2, 3 exes, what would they say? Man, they wouldn't talk good about me because all of them crazy. Like that's red flaggy. But I always tell people to take your time. Your greatest weapon in dating is literally to slow things down because the faster you move, the more it benefits them. Because you miss red flags, you might overlook red flags, you might forgive a lie or something like that. And I also say this right here: if you have a bad first date, I'm not saying bad first dates don't exist in fairy tale romances, but if you have a bad first date and you tell the person everything that they did wrong on the first date, you give them the blueprint to manipulate you on the second date. Because a lot of times on the first date, yeah, they might be nervous, but they might be actually showing you who they really are. The second date, they show up as who they need to be. So it's just like a lot of times if your first date is not good and you tell them everything that they did wrong, okay, I'm not gonna do this. Yeah, checklist right here. So just like sustainability, if if you really do have to trust yourself because the same information that's out there for people that are dealing with narcissists, it's also available to narcissists. The same exact information. There's a lot of people out here who putting out information on how to manipulate better. It's just like slow it down, pay attention, listen to this person. They're telling you there are narcissistic people who might not be self aware, but they're telling you how to be manipulative. So that's why I'm saying speed is the weapon of a narcissist. Like if you take your time and slow down, you typically win out because they will show you their true character. And also, like I know people have these first date rules or 90-day rules or 3 date rules, 5 date rules. Don't tell them that. Those rules are for you. Because if you're like, I have a 5 date rule or no kissing. Okay, 5 dates. I have a 90-day rule or whatever, 30-day rule. Like you're giving them a timeline on how to behave. So if I act right for 30 days, then I get a reward. If we have 4 or 5 good dates, then I can just be manipulative. I can just become whoever I set a timetable in my head. So just like those are for you. If you have a 5 date rule, let they be for you. Just tell them no. Just like, oh, you don't kiss on the first date? Oh no. I like to take my time. In your mind, it's 5 dates. If you tell them 5 dates, of course. But if you don't tell them 5 dates, they feel rejected. You'll see them who they really are because a lot of times they can't handle rejection. Find a way to say no. I'm just telling you, that helps out so much. Because if people were to say that to me back when I was dating, I was just like, okay, I'm not gonna cut you off. I'm gonna cut you off. You gonna reject me? You made me feel bad about myself.
Outside of some of the signs you just pointed out, what are some things people could look for if they're like kind of looking at somebody's social media before they start dating them? What are some signs from what they post about that can maybe lead them to believe that they may have something else going on?
This is gonna sound like just basic advice, but like if it's too good to be true, a lot of times it is, y'all. Because social media does allow people the ability to become whoever they want to be. They literally can become whoever they want to be online on social media. They can cultivate these personalities. Now, I was telling you before this, it's like digital, it's like, emotional catfishing. Like they look the same, they don't always catfishing doesn't always have to do with, the physical stuff. Like they might look different, but it can be emotional. It can be the personality, like personality catfishing. If it's too good to be true, it typically is online. Like you don't know I feel like parasocial relationships are can be extremely toxic because you start to idolize this person based on their social media presence. So just don't trust the image that they put out on social media. Like who are they in real life as opposed to who are they on social media? It can change up dramatically. And I feel like for me, the reason my platform has become so authentic is because like I'm the same person online as I am offline. Like the people who've come to my in person workshops or my people in real life, there's like, yeah, that's exactly how he did. That's exactly who he is in real life. There's no transition. There's no transition. I talk the same, I act the same. But in real, I'm just telling you, social media it is the narcissist playground, just like dating apps. Just like you know, if it sounds too good to be true, if they're talking about this emotional stuff like this, like one thing I like to see on this woman actually in one of my groups, she sent her ex's dating profile to the group. She's like, "This is my toxic ex. Look at his dating profile." And it literally it sounded like fairy tale stuff. It's just like, I'm looking for a smart woman that gets a smart man. I like to walk on the beach and be emotionally connected to people. And he was beating her. You know, he was literally saying, "It sounds so good." He was just like, "I'm just different in this world than just looking for my queen or something like that." Or just it sounds so fake. It sounds too good. I don't trust it. That's why like if I was on dating apps nowadays, I'd be horrible. I just know I would. Because I could just because I know exactly what I need to put online. Just like you put what you want people to hear. If it sounds like it's something that you want to hear, I wouldn't trust it. I would just kind of walk, go on with caution. Just walk. I got my red flags right here. Just kind of walk through with just kind of walk through with it right there. Because if it sounds like exactly something that you want to hear, it's typically something that somebody told them earlier. So it's just not. It's very rarely that real person's personality online. You know, kind, caring, compassionate person that this can deal with a man like me. Or, it just it sounds too messy. It really is. I just know I would be horrible. Like I might do that one day. I might actually just go into a dating profile. I talk to my wife and just create a profile just to see what would happen. Just see what happens. Yeah, because I can show you. I can tell. I can create one and show you exactly what to look for. That'd be a good idea. I might make one just to show people exactly what to look for. Because I would put on there what I think people want to hear. You know, I wouldn't put who I really am on there. There'd be aspects of my personality on there, like funny. That would be it, and I would just go on for what I know women look for. Oh, women wanted a compassionate person, been overlooked a long time because I don't stand out. I'm the nice guy that finishes last. Blah blah blah. Whatever it is, it sounds too good, but it stands out because other people put the craziness on there. Or the very over the top person. That's the covert narcissist. The over the top overt narcissist, they'll just be super flashy online. And that attracts a lot of people as well. You know, super flashy, super out there, living this extravagant life that entices people as well. But you kind of know what you expect in that situation. So that's the overt. The covert narcissist will tell you what you want to hear. The overt narcissist will show you what you want to see. So it's kind of like got to find a happy medium in between there on dating profiles and take your time. Again, before you meet somebody in real life, find a way to say no to them in the messages. Find a way to say no.
I said this like recently in an interview where I saw this quote online. I forget who said it, but it was something like insecurity is loud and confidence is quiet. And I think that's like the kind of a good way to put it. Like if somebody is like super insecure, they're going to be super loud online with what their life's like, who they are, blah, blah, blah. And you just feel it, right? You're like, it's almost like, here being at a concert and the noise is too loud. It's like, you just know something's kind of off, right? You talked about like some of these mind games, right? And a lot of outside of narcissists, I would say the other word that gets thrown around a lot is gaslighting. Like, "You're gaslighting me." It's like, "No, I just, like, disagree with you. I'm just disagreeing with you or holding you accountable," right? But from the context of a narcissistic relationship, what is gaslighting? Like, what does it look like?
Gaslighting is making somebody, question their reality. I know a lot of people with this they overuse the word gaslighting, like they overuse the word narcissist. A lot of people think gaslighting is just a normal lie. It's not a normal lie. It's deeper than that. The easiest example would be the color of the sky example and whatnot. Just like, if I were to tell you the sky is blue, and if you were to tell me the sky is blue, I was like, is if I say no, it's not blue. That's just a lie, right? No, it's not blue. That's just a lie. Gaslighting is taken to the next step. It's actually not blue. It's actually how your eyes visualize it. It's actually purple and black, and there's a color spectrum or whatever. Something is deeper. It's deeper. It's insidious. It makes you start to question your own beliefs. It makes you actually start to question your own reality. Did I just see you go to? Did you I just see you at McDonald's park lot? Oh no, that wasn't me. You're seeing things, and I got a McDonald's bag in my hand. It's just like you're seeing things. It gets so much deeper on relationships. Like you're making that up. No, you didn't see that. Those kissy faces and that heart emoji come through on my phone last night. You're going crazy. You're going crazy. That's what people would describe it as. Like it makes you feel. No, that's actually what people. It's crazy making. It's crazy making behavior. It's deeper lies. It's actually gaslighting with people. It's not just a lie. It's like emotionally abusive. Where people just like it have you going crazy. My wife keeps making me feel like I'm going crazy. Like she keeps saying that this guy is just her friend, but she turns her phone off and disappears for hours at a time. And then she comes home with scratches on her neck and stuff like that. And she says, she got into a cat fight or whatever. And on the way home, she saw a stray cat. It's always deeper than just a regular lie. So just like it makes you question your reality. It's just not like, okay, I have this red shirt on. No, this shirt is blue. Like you're seeing things. I don't know what you like. You might need to go get some glasses, though, because this shirt is definitely uh fuchsia, some kind of different color. It's way deeper than just a regular lie, and it's repeated over and over again. It's not just one time. It's something that it's kind of becomes a mantra. This lie that becomes a mantra that makes you question your reality and your existence. It can drive you crazy. People, gaslighting it can lead to people harming themselves or harming other people because based on this insidious kind of plan and whatnot. So it's just like, I thought this person was crazy. It make you feel paranoid about your own existence.
And what about projection? That's also something that you hear narcissists do a lot of. Like, something they say about you is typically about them. Like, explain that.
Oh yeah, the projections are real. It's actually something that, like I said, if I'm doing something, if I'm out here, the easiest thing for me is cheating, right? So it's just like if I'm out here cheating, it makes me super paranoid that you're doing the same thing. So I start accusing you of it. Hey, you cheating on me? You kind of came home a little late yesterday. I was 2 minutes late. I was in traffic. 2 minutes is all it takes. You know that, right? All it takes to cheat on me is 2 minutes. Like, where were you? Who is he? And stuff like that. So it's actually a way for them to avoid accountability or for them to justify what they're doing. Because if I project it onto you that you're cheating, and sometimes they can actually start to believe it, it can drive them, they can become obsessed with you doing it. That can justify them cheating. It's like I was cheating because I thought you were. I was cheating. I started, stealing money or whatever because I thought you were. I started lying to you because I thought you were. It's a very easy way for them to avoid accountability by saying, "Hey, you did this, not me." It can drive you crazy, but sometimes if they start projecting, they are crazy. Just like for lack of a better word, they are like losing their minds because sometimes they will believe it. You know, they will absolutely start to believe that you are cheating and whatever. Because like, what matter of fact, um, there's this case right now in real life that just I think got decided yesterday or Wednesday. This dude from TikTok named the Jin Kid or Ali Abulaban or whatever. He was literally cheating on his wife, and she kicked him out, and they got separated. And he got so paranoid about her cheating or whatever, her moving on, that he installed Discord on his daughter's iPad app, and he was listening to it. And she actually went on a date, and he drove over the house. Like, you cheated on me, and killed them both. Basically, but he was actually there, and he was in court. They showed him, it's like, you call her cheating. Like, you kept getting paranoid about her cheating, but you actually were cheating on her. Like, you send her messages saying, like, yeah, I slept with this person last night. Ah ha ha. I'm cheating on you. I can find other people. Look who I'm with right now. And he was doing it. And he got so paranoid about her doing it that he went over there and took her life. It was crazy. So if they start accusing you of this stuff, y'all, if y'all listen to this, be very wary because they can take it to the next level. They absolutely can.
So do you think it's possible to be in a relationship with a narcissist?
Yeah, is it possible? Yeah, like, there's that's that's why I think that's why my platform got so popular because so many people in relationships with them. Have this is one of the main questions people ask me: can you have a healthy relationship with a narcissist? I typically tell people you really can't, because you have to alter your definition of what healthy is. You really do. It's like you can't I don't think you can have a healthy relationship if you really can't communicate in a healthy way. You can't speak your mind. You can't, openly have, disagreements and things like that. I feel like you can't have a healthy relationship if you can't truly be yourself. So you have to alter your definition of healthy to be in that type of relationship dynamic. Because I think people see my relationship like, is your relationship healthy? I was like, it's healthier. It's still working. It's healthier than it used to be, and we do work. I mean, it's like we still argue and fuss and stuff like that. It's not a perfect relationship by any means. It's like we're not gonna be in a relationship magazine or anything like that. But it's healthier because I go to therapy. I've been in therapy for 7 years. She actually sees her own therapist for for her own stuff. But we also have seen some marriage counselors as well, just to kind of talk and learn how to communicate better in a healthier way. I'm not saying it's impossible, but if they're not willing to work on themselves, then you kind of have to accept them for who they are and go from that point right there. And that sucks because so many people, when you accept them for who they are, it's accepting less. You accepting less than what you feel like you deserve. You're accepting less than what you feel like you're accustomed to, which can be extremely frustrating to a lot of people. Because they can make you jealous of your friend's relationship. They're over there hugging and kissing, and you and your partner don't even talk. You know, y'all don't even text each other. Y'all living together and blocked each other on social media. So y'all have the opposite relationship dynamic going on. So you have to alter your definition of what healthy is to be, I guess, happy in this relationship dynamic. There are a lot of people who I talk to that are staying. Not everybody leaves. They feel like they have too much invested in it, or the person isn't as pathological or psychopathic as everybody else is. So there's certain levels of it, but yeah, some people don't leave. So you can have one. It just you have to alter. You have to be willing to sacrifice a few things and accept not only that person for who they are, except that the only thing you are in control of is you.
So if you end up breaking up with a narcissist or the relationship ends, how does a narcissist typically behave after that point?
Some of them will, like I said, there is a small contingent that will just disappear and leave you alone, right? But there is another contingent that will absolutely become stalkerish, harass you, become obsessive with you, and try to get you back. Like very similar to the story I was just telling you about the guy like Ali Abulabon. Like his wife, had finally decided that she had enough of the relationship and got separated from him. She tried to move on. And he was like, nope. And he this is good. He killed her and the dude that she was talking to. So some of them will lose their minds, but there's a lot of them who will promise to change, promise to be better, or whatever. I'll go to therapy. I'll go do this. I'll work on you. I know we've been planning on taking that trip for 5 years. Let's go ahead and book it right now. I booked the trip. But I tell people when they start making all these grandiose promises at the end, it kind of shows you how manipulative they've been because they could have been doing that. Like they could have been done that. But now that they feel like you're leaving, now they want to turn it on, which shows you a lot of times they do know what they're doing and they know what makes you happy. They just withhold it a lot of times. They just keep, they just really back in a little bit in a lot of these spaces and whatnot as well. So some of them will refuse to let you go. So some of them you have to force them to leave you alone. So I would recommend y'all start, don't know what state y'all in, but like document things, record things if possible and whatnot. And because you might have to get a restraining order on them. You might have to call the police. You might have to get them locked up because sometimes they won't leave you alone. They feel like you belong to them and they own you and they don't want to see you with anybody else. Even if they have someone else, which is crazy. Sometimes they can be in a whole new full blown relationship and still won't leave you alone. They'll still keep messing with you. So
I think one of the fears from people, from what I've heard, is that they feel that if they move on from a narcissist, that the narcissist will find somebody else and treat them the way they should have treated the previous person. Is there truth in that?
yeah, so that's one of the biggest fears that I hear when people are like, "Are they going to treat the new person better?" And I say, "Yeah, they are. 'Cause in the beginning, they will. because what you're going to be witnessing them if you're watching them, which you shouldn't be watching their relationship transpire or unfold, because if you're watching the beginning of a new relationship with them, they're going to be love bombing the new person. You're going to be watching the love bombing phase of a new relationship, and it's going to hurt your feelings and break your heart, because what they'll do is they'll take the stuff that you wanted them to do and they know it works. So they'll do it for the next person because they know it works. You wanted a dog, you got a dog. I thought it should be a dog. You want to take a trip? You never took a trip in your 15 years together. Their first month, they go on the trip that you wanted to plan. They wanted to vacate. They go on the vacation that you wanted to plan. They're just taking the things that they learned from you and using them to manipulate other people with, to love on other people with. So I was like, don't watch it. And the fact that they're doing it with somebody else shows you that they really are not authentic people, because they're just taking things that they learned and doing it for somebody else. This is not something they thought of. This is something that they learned from you. So will that relationship go to hell? Probably. But I always tell people longevity, even if they don't break up, longevity doesn't always equal happiness. I know plenty of people that have been together 40, 50 years. They're just like, I should have left 40 years ago. I talked to a woman recently a few times, married 40 plus years, just got divorced. And she's super angry. She's like, yeah, I got married at 15 and 16 just to escape a toxic household. And I was married to this person, you know. Now I'm about to be 55 and single. And it's just like it's a different life. So just like so I wasn't happy most of the time. So longevity doesn't always equal happiness. So I was just like, I call it the narcissist TV. You gotta flip off the narcissist TV because you're watching it. It's like reality TV is interesting, you know. You gotta flip it off because you go pain shopping. You go looking for things that are gonna hurt you.
I guess as a follow up to that, as we're like kind of rounding out our conversation, one of the big pieces of advice you hear a lot about dealing with narcissists is like the no contact rule. Like talk about what that actually looks like, why it's so important, and like why you should really abstain from being in contact with somebody like that after you break up with them.
So I feel like no contact means no access. No phone calls, no text messages, no looking at their social media, no anything that has to do with them directly. Because when it starts having to do with them directly, that's when it starts to mess with you, right? Because no contact is meant to help you heal. It's meant to help you grow. It's meant to help you move forward. And I really, really don't think you can move forward while you're still attaching and talking to this person, because I know a lot of people like no contact does require you to block them a lot of times, because if they're still getting through, sooner or later they're going to say something to you that triggers a response from you. It's almost always like that. They're going to say something to you that makes you want to respond to them. They're going to say something that triggers, hey, I'm finally going to therapy, or I'm going to hurt myself. I'm going to harm myself. I miss you so much. They're always going to say something that sets you off to make you break no contact. So when I tell people that right there, you have to do that. It's not about, it really is like going no contact really isn't about the narcissist. It really is about you healing, right? It's really about you healing and you growing and you working on yourself. So no contact is no access, blocking, removing them from your life, which is tough, because it's hard, to think about this right here. If you've been with somebody for 10 years, talking to somebody every single day, it's 3,650 days. Now you're never going to hear from them again. Now you're never going to speak to them again. That's the goal. But it's tough going from that to zero, or this is to day one of not talking to them again. So before you go no contact, make sure you have everything that you want to say said to yourself, because talking to them is not going to help you. Just understand that that's part of it. I know a lot of people make it seem like no contact is just easy. Just block them. It's hard when you talk to this person, like I said, 3,000 for 3,000, 4,000 straight days every single day. Who I'm going to share my inside jokes with, who I'm going to talk to right here. It's very difficult in that situation right there. So it's something to consider right there as well. The no contact is extremely important.
Anything else you'd like to share as it relates to narcissism or anything that we've talked about that you think the audience should know, or that you think the audience should know, or that they'd appreciate like understanding better?
So I would say this right here. First off, if you think you're dealing with a narcissist, right, and you don't have kids with this person, don't have kids with that person. I feel like that's one of the biggest regrets that so many people talk to is like, I just wish I didn't have. They love their kids, but like, this isn't the only fertile person in the world. I could have had kids to somebody else in a healthier space. So like, kids don't fix things. They just typically, make things worse in toxic relationships. Plus, not only will you be getting abused, then you're bringing kids into this abusive situation as well. But I also add that, yeah, take from this, if y'all watch this, don't take from me that the narcissistic person in your life is going to change. Like, I don't want to give false hope to people that you see somebody who's in therapy working on themselves. I didn't go to therapy to save my marriage. I went to therapy to save my own mental health, my own life. Because, like I said, I've been knowing something was wrong with me for 25 years. So it has nothing. It has way less to do with my wife than it does my own personal mental health journey. So whether or not that person goes to therapy and decides to work on themselves is not a reflection of your worth and your value. It has everything to do with how they feel about themselves. So don't take this like, well, I wish my ex would have went to therapy. No, but that's not for me. No, it has nothing to do with you. It's for themselves. They want you to take them as is, no exchanges and things like that. So it's just like it has less to do with you than it absolutely does. Healing and self love work. So like, yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I think people are going to get a lot of value out of this. I think it's really going to be really eye opening for people to hear what it's actually like to be a diagnosed narcissist. If people want to follow your work, connect with you on social media, if they want to check out books or stuff you've done or have access to some of your coaching, where's the best place to do that?
You find me on social media everywhere at mental healness, like mental healness, HEALNESS, everywhere. Or like I said, you can find my books and my coaching and things like that, my support groups at mentalhealness.net. And that's where you find everything you want to, everything about me, my merch, my everything, mentalhealness.net.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much again for coming on. Like I said, the audience is going to love this one.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, I really think you're going to like this video as well. I'll see you there.